Hey guys, welcome to tonight's live. I have so much to get through tonight because there is so much meat to everything that I have to talk about. We are talking about fatigue, and we are going through the advent of menopause symptoms. I always have to tie into something with menopause here, but there are a lot of causes of fatigue. It's just that after perimenopause or menopause, our tolerance is not as good because of our hormone decline. So I'm going to just kind of rip through these, but this is your time. And please ask questions and please engage and tell me if I'm on the right track, because it really is important to me that I cover stuff that you want. So I come here to answer questions, but mostly to give content to and to share, all the things in my poor little head that I just have to get out there to the world. And so my passion is to help women understand that perimenopause is a very erratic hormonal time, and you are not crazy, and this is real. And so just understanding that can be so important, just so you can get help, because you get gaslighted and doctors just dismiss you. And so then you end up on sleeping medications, depression medications, medications to wake you up. I call it the Elvis syndrome. He had like meds to wake him up and meds to go to sleep. And then before you know it, you're into polypharmacy. So I think the most important thing with low energy is that you recognize what it is that's actually causing it. I am going to flip my screen here. I think it's mirrored. So when I start drawing, because I love to draw, so that you can see. So I'm going to move this here just a minute. So when I move over. Okay, so I was asking my son right before I came down here to do this live, and I said, he's 20. He's so smart. And I said, baby, I said, what do you think is the number one cause of low energy? And he immediately said, oh, hey, Elaine. Hello, honey. Well, I'm so glad you're here. He immediately said, eating S-H-I-T, food. I don't want to say that. Like, I don't want to be, yeah. So anyway, eating bad food, we'll just say, right? And so I know that he really recognizes that. And so I was just talking to Mike, my moderator and fiance, on the way here, and we were talking about like people are bringing in all this Christmas stuff and like the candy, and like my office has already started getting hit with it. And you would think, being sort of wellness and we do weight loss and hormones, that they would be thinking of like bringing like fruit or something, but they bring the goodies. And I can say for sure that this happened to me when I was in college. I remember going to this little clinic at the college and telling the doctor, I was like, I am so tired. And here I'm thinking I want to go to med school. I mean, I'm in college and I'm like, this is a long way away. And I'm like, there's no way that's ever going to happen if I can't even stay awake in class. And so they did all this blood work, and we didn't have health insurance back then. That was 40 years ago. That sounds terrible. 35 years ago. And so they ran ANAs, they ran thyroid, all the things that you could be tired from. And the nurse calls me and she says, everything's normal. I'm like, how can that be? I don't know. Tell me in the comments, have you ever had that experience when you get the call from a doctor because you are so tired and you don't feel good, and they tell you everything's normal, and there's a part of you that is relieved because you thought maybe you had something really bad, but then there's a part of you that kind of shifts into, well, what the hell, what is wrong, why am I so tired? So users, I don't know what your name is, so I would call you, but I'll just call you user. She says yes. So fatigue is very real, low energy, and we've done talks. We're doing the 25 advent symptoms of menopause and perimenopause and hormone imbalance. But so we've talked about fatigue with not sleeping well. So I would say that kind of is a play into when you're not sleeping well, when your progesterone is low, and I always want to spread the word that you are in ovarian failure once you get through, quote, a year without period. So I don't even use the term menopause. I use the term ovarian failure because that's what it is. And that's what the issue is. So that kind of leads me into number two. So if you have hormone issues that you know about, um, that's definitely what we need to address tonight. Yes, happens a lot. If I ask for lab paperwork, Elaine says, yeah, so it's bad. Um, but anyway, so I went and had all this blood work done, and they tell me it's normal, right? And so I'm like, what am I going to do? So my son's dad, that I was married to at the time, he said, Tammy, do you realize that you eat like terrible? And I started thinking, and I was like, yeah, I have a honey bun and a Coke for breakfast or Captain Crunch. And that's the way my mom taught me. She didn't know any better, right? It was just you need some Coke to wake up, Coca-Cola, right? Let me be clear. And then like for lunch, I would just grab, there was like a Taco Bell and there was like, where everybody eats, sort of the food court. And it was all just junk food. And, I was snacking on Skittles. And the other thing was my favorite was like those zero bars with the white chocolate on them. And so, like he said, why don't you just go get some vitamins, start eating some salads, do some protein, and see how that goes. It was night and day, and it changed my life forever, the whole trajectory, because now I recognize, and do I eat junk food? I absolutely do. But for the most part, I try to really be mindful of it. And I am not afraid to eat sugar, and I'm not afraid to, I don't really, because my hormones are balanced and I exercise and I take supplements to help my metabolism. I don't really worry about what I eat. I am not stressed. I'm not like counting every single carb gram. I mean, it's just, I live my life, right? And so I live it not in fear about what I'm eating. So I think it's very important that you try to keep your food as clean as possible. And so, one of the things too, I'm going to start marking these off the list as we talk. One of the things when it comes to eating clean is an awareness of the toxins in our environment. And everybody says, yeah, there's toxins in the environment. And there's some stuff on our vegetables, the pesticides and stuff. But here's the reason you need to know about what's happening in your food. So there are 5 chemicals that are what we call endocrine disruptors. So what does that mean? Well, your endocrine system is your hormone system, and that is all of your hormones. That is your ovarian hormones, that is your adrenal hormones, that is your thyroid, that's your pituitary gland, that's every system that makes hormones in your body. So, and I think of your liver as an endocrine gland because it actually takes cholesterol as a prohormone and makes your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone. Yeah, cholesterol is not a fatty globule ready to cause a heart attack like you've been told. It is actually a hormone that makes your sex steroid hormones, your estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, and the whole list, and your cortisol. And so if you have a chemical in your body that acts like one of those hormones, but is not, and your body gets confused, it's kind of like autoimmune disease where your immune system gets confused. If your body gets confused because of these chemicals, because it thinks that it has too much of something, and it's the same way with your thyroid. If you take too much thyroid hormone, it will shut down your thyroid functioning. For testosterone, in men, if they take too much testosterone, it will shut down their ability to make testosterone. And the same thing with birth control. You're giving somebody high dose synthetic hormones, it shuts down the ovaries. It literally puts you in a menopause so you can't get pregnant, right? So these chemicals are banned in other countries. So I'm going to tell you 5 that are banned in other countries that we allow in the US. Sarah says cystic acne due to high of androgens. Yeah, I'll come back to that in just a second. Let me finish the toxins. And so these 5 chemicals are, number 1 is BPA, and that is in plastics. And it mimics estrogen, and we call those xenoestrogens, not estrogen, but the molecule's a little different, so we call them xenoestrogen. And if you have too much estrogen, you have something called estrogen dominance, and that can disrupt the estrogen progesterone balance. And if you don't have enough progesterone, you're not going to sleep well. And so then you're going to be fatigued and low energy the next day. So those water bottles, I'm really careful to try to drink out of metal, or ceramic. And when I do have to do water bottles, I try to do that minimally. I don't microwave with plastic, and I always put it on glass. And occasionally, I would say I never do that, but I'm really mindful of it because you have to think about water bottles. Well, how much is really going to leach out of that plastic? But they're sitting in trucks before they're delivered, and so all of that um, PCB are it's basically, or the BPAs and the PCBs are basically being leached out of the plastic with the heat. And so it's not so much when you drink out of the water bottle, but it's what was released into the water, right? So it's something to be really mindful of. There's something called phthalates. And this is interesting. It's actually spelled PHTHALATES. Phthalates can actually decrease your testosterone level. And both men and women have testosterone. And so testosterone helps with energy. So we're not just talking about fatigue, we're talking about energy levels. And the difference I would say in fatigue is when you're tired and you just need to go to sleep, like a sugar crash, like you just think, oh my gosh, I can't hold my eyes open. Low energy is just that low grade all day long. Just you feel like crap. You feel like you're walking through mud, right? So testosterone helps with your drive, which is why we think of men, executive men, with a higher testosterone, they have this great drive. And testosterone is really important for that. And testosterone for building muscle. And testosterone is great for lots of things. So it's really important that you don't have these phthalates leaching your testosterone out of your system and acting like testosterone, but it's not, and it's shutting down your testosterone production. So there are lots of foods that have that in it. We'll go through that, but read your labels. It's really important to read your labels. I always say if there's more than 5 ingredients on a label, that's something that you need to steer clear of. And they say shop on the periphery of the grocery store. So the reason for that is because the foods in the middle of the grocery store are the ones with all the preservatives, because those are the ones that don't get accessed as easy. So, your vegetables, all that stuff, your dairy, all that's going to be on the periphery of the store. So just be mindful of that. And PCBs are the other chemical I was talking about with BPAs that also come from plastic, that are thyroid disruptors. And thyroid is your main metabolic hormone. So you'll gain weight, but you'll also be tired. So I'm going to talk about weight gain and being overweight and how that affects your energy levels in just a second. But thyroid disruption is pretty serious. And then there's dioxins. And I found out that dioxins are found mostly in cereals and in anything that is coated like candy, like Skittles, or anything that has the appearance of being white. That's just a chemical that kind of whitens things. So watch for dioxides. And then atrazine, we all know there are certain pesticides and things that can cause problems, but atrazine is something that actually leaches into the food. So if you're not washing your fruit, this is crazy. I was doing I have a TV show called The Naked Doctor Show, the naked truth about health and wealth and health and lifestyle, wealth, that too, because health is wealth, right? So if you want to Google that, it's The Naked Doctor Show, and it's on YouTube, but we have a local TV show. So I have so much information out there about, just things that I researched to do the show, which is really good for me to stay proactive with the learning process, right? And we talk about all these things like these preservatives, there's the red dyes and all that. And so, it's like we eat these things and then we don't really realize what we're eating. And so on one of the shows, I had an apple because I had been at I have an art studio I go to, and one of the people in there was scraping with a knife this white wax off the apple. I was like, what the heck is that? And he's like, that wax is what traps in the pesticides. I'm like, oh my gosh, that is nuts. You think you're being healthy, right? And I have my patients tell me all the time, holy crap, it's like, what is there left to eat? And so my response to that is pray about it. Like, there's a reason we pray before we eat, because it's like, I don't know what we got going on, but pray over your food, put blessings on there. It's going to be okay for your body. And one of the things too with that is that if you have this belief, because I totally believe in the power of belief. If you believe that your food is going to cause you harm, there are so many. In fact, there are all of the pharmaceutical studies or research studies in medicine have something called a placebo arm, meaning the people are given something that's not got the thing and then given something that does have the thing, because the mind is such a powerful thing. So I would say, don't live your life. Oh my gosh, I watched this Dr. Tammy girl and she's got me scared to even move or eat. You have to move and eat, right? But that's one of the reasons that I take a lot of supplements. So, like methylated B vitamins help clear toxins out of your liver. And so there's a lot of things that you can actually do to sort of override some of these issues as well. So I just want to tell you that it's not the end of the world. And I know there's a lot of bad things in the food supply, but I just want you to think, when you're feeling like your energy is drained throughout the day, think about what you've eaten or think about what you eat a lot. And there's so many people who can't even remember the last time they ate a vegetable. So if you like can put in the chat the last time you ate a vegetable, that'd be awesome. We do this every once in a while. I love to hear, when was the last time you ate a vegetable? Because it's a thing, right? I mean, and that's why I do like my fruits and greens and I do all my supplements, because it's, I try to have a vegetable every day, but like it's nuts, because you should be having like 5 or 6 servings of vegetables a day, right? And then you got to worry about the stuff that's on it. So that's a thing. Okay, so enough about food. No, wait, not enough about food. I do have to say, oh, Sarah said yesterday. Yeah, I mean, it's like if we're supposed to be eating 5 servings a day, it's like in yesterday and it's already nighttime. So I'm not ragging on you, because like I totally get it. Um, so okay. I do okay, I'm gonna move through the list, but somebody did ask me a question a little bit about acne. And I think it was acne and androgens or testosterone. So it's funny because there's a couple, some night I'll do a whole talk on acne, but acne has 3 different aspects to it. One is these are what are called sebaceous glands in the skin, which actually secrete the oil, right? And then there is the hormonal influence there. And then there's also, because it's a sac where the oil comes out, if bacteria gets down in there, it gets inflamed. And then that's when you get the big, you know, cystic acne kind of stuff. And so a couple different components to that. So yes, absolutely. Hormones, PCOS, estrogen dominance, testosterone overload, all of that can cause cystic acne. And your food supply, again, I'll go back to food here. But okay, so the last thing, maybe I'll probably still keep coming back to food. Sorry, I don't know how not to, because food is medicine, right? But you can do something called food sensitivity testing. And my lab and I are snacking on asparagus now. Yay! That's awesome. Asparagus. Not a huge asparagus fan, but yeah, that's awesome. Food sensitivity. So we do a test where, like functional medicine as well as hormones in my practice, we do a test called food sensitivity testing. And sometimes people have gluten intolerance, or sometimes it's even things like dairy, or there's a lot of studies with gluten. And I am prone to this too. I have autoimmune thyroid and gluten. And there's a great book called Grain Brain. And Dr. Perlmutter talks about different kinds of grains affecting the thyroid. It is distracting before your goes still, and progesterone's low. I missed that comment. If you would come back to that, and we'll talk about that here in just a little bit. So I don't want to not answer that. But if I eat a lot of gluten, that's when I start having a lot of fatigue with my thyroid. And so I'll do my thyroid testing and my TSH will be like through the roof. And I'm like, I know I did that to myself. And I used to take thyroid medicine, but I don't have to anymore, because I really do try to be mindful of that. So as long as I do that, and I do eat gluten, but for the most part, like during the day, people are like, well, what do you eat? So, I have probably yogurt in the morning, mid-snack, and then I snack on cashews, or I'll take some cheese squares, or, as much protein as I can. I'll have like a turkey roll with just turkey, basically. You shouldn't call it a turkey roll. It's just turkey rolled up. Sherry says, I ordered the saliva test kit today. Yay! I'm so excited. That's so awesome. So Sherry is talking about our test kit. So many women are having trouble getting doctors to listen to them, getting them to check their hormones, perimenopause, postmenopause, even people with hormone issues, estrogen dominance, PCOS, endometriosis. So even fertility, it's just really hard to get doctors to listen sometimes. So this is my passion project. We have the plan where you can order this. You get it at home, you spit in the tube, and then you send it in, and we get the lab results, and then we call you, and then we talk about a plan, and then we get you on bioidentical hormones, which is awesome, and some supplements probably, and it's individualized for everybody. But and somebody did mention today that like they have trouble producing saliva. And I will tell you, it's not fun. I mean, you think it's like you just spit in a tube, but until you like have to fill like this tube halfway, it's pretty tricky. So anyway, but it's a great test. But if you feel like spitting in a tube is just too much, or you can't, you can always call the number on our website at hormonebliss.com and ask them for a blood spot test or a lab order that you can go to one of your labs and get your blood drawn. But we like this because you can either do this, or you can prick your finger and you just put it on a little card and then send it in. So super easy. I like the saliva testing because if we do the topical bioidentical creams, then this is a little bit more accurate about what's in the tissue. So there's that. Okay, so we were talking about, I just got distracted there, sorry, squirrel. While I'm distracted about chasing squirrels, if you like what I'm talking about, if you could show some love and tap the screen, and you just kind of keep tapping, and it'll send hearts up, and that kind of lets the algorithm know that I'm here and that this is decent stuff that I'm talking about. And so that'd be really cool. There's some hearts. Yay, thank you. I love it. I love it. Or I think there's a way you can like it, or thumbs up, or something like that. So I so appreciate that. Okay. So did I answer that question? Somebody said something about hysterectomy, and they were talking about their progesterone. If you're still there, throw that question back in there, and I'll interrupt and chase that squirrel because I want to make sure I get that answered for you. Okay, so let's go back to fatigue, unless somebody is tracking and they know what I was answering. Okay, had a hysterectomy 4 years ago, still have my ovaries. Progesterone is low. Okay, hysterectomy, still has ovaries. Progesterone is low. Okay. Do you mind to tell me how old you are? Because that gives me a little bit better idea. Tell me how old you are, and maybe wait. Oh, okay, 29. And was, okay. So I don't want to ask you too much private information. So progesterone's low. You absolutely need progesterone. The reason that you probably had the hysterectomy, I'm guessing, was for heavy bleeding, because that's one of the main reasons they pull your uterus out. And hysterectomies are side to side with gallbladder surgery, which gallbladder surgery is also from estrogen dominance problems. So we have the two main surgeries that are done in the United States are from the underlying cause of estrogen dominance, which is nuts. So if that was the case, I always say taking the uterus out does not fix the hormone imbalance, right? It just stops the bleeding. Just like I say, after menopause, just because your ovaries dry up and you're not having a period anymore does not change the fact that you are in ovarian failure. You have no ovaries anymore. Severe endometriosis and uterine fibroids. Okay, so I'm going to skip out of the low energy for just a minute, because this is also relevant to low energy, because that's kind of where I was going to go next. Was bioidentical hormones can have a huge impact for low energy. So I have to draw this picture. Now I went to my whiteboard because I've been drawing so many pictures lately that I ran out of paper. And the reason I don't normally use the dry erase is because the glare from the lights, but I'm going to see if this will work. And you guys also have to, if I can get a pen that works, you'll have to tell me if you can see this and I'm not reversed. And so I'm going to do hormones on this axis. And can you see that okay? Do I need to flip the screen? Flip. Okay. Flip, flip, flip. I'm flipping now. Yay, better? Yes. Yes, yes, good. Okay. So hormones on this axis, and then we're going to do a menstrual cycle, and we're going to say that's 28 days. And in the middle part of this cycle, oh, thanks. Thanks, Elaine. Appreciate that. Christy, thank you, thank you. My love. Michael, thank you. Okay, day 14 is the middle of this cycle. Okay, so this is hormones on this axis, and we're just going to keep this to estrogen and progesterone, okay? And so normally I do estrogen and red, but I don't. Oh, I do have some red, maybe. Yeah, dry erase. I always have to make sure that it's not the not dry erase, like permanent marker, not good. Okay, so estrogen I'm going to do in red. So in a menstrual cycle, what happens is estrogen starts rising at about the time of ovulation. So this is where PMS happens. And so estrogen starts rising. And so what normally happens is progesterone, I'm going to do that in green. Progesterone kicks in here and grabs onto estrogen. Not really. This is an oversimplification, but it pulls the estrogen down, and then you have a menstrual cycle. You bleed here, and then you start all over again. And so if you don't have enough progesterone to pull that down, estrogen starts going renegade on you. And this is what we call estrogen dominance. You can read that. And so what is estrogen dominance? Estrogen dominance is what causes the bleeding. If you have too much estrogen, that's when you have the PMS, that's when you have the dysfunctional uterine bleeding. And if you have enough uterine buildup over time, then you can have fibroids form, which are the uterus is a big muscle. That's why it contracts when you have a baby. If you have that uterine muscle contracted for too long, and then that's what the cramping is that muscle contracting. If you have that for too long, it's like any other muscle that gets overused, it gets bigger. And when it gets bigger, it can then get confused, and then you can start getting fibroids. And a fibroid is just a mass that happens in the uterus. Endometriosis is when you actually have uterine tissue outside the uterus, and that's why it's so painful, because you're having this estrogen dominance and you're bleeding out in your pelvic cavity. Or cysts rupture, they rupture out into the pelvic cavity, and it's very irritating, so it hurts a lot. I've had ruptured cysts, they're awful. It took me the ER twice. So yeah, nobody really understands the extent of that until you've had that happen. You think you're dying like a kidney stone kind of thing, so it's pretty bad. But if you had the hysterectomy, you had an estrogen dominant situation, and you had an ovarian complex of not having this balance between estrogen and progesterone. So I'm not surprised that you said that you had your uterus out and kept your ovaries and your progesterone's low. They should have freaking checked your progesterone before the hysterectomy and told you that it was low, and hey, let's fix your progesterone problem and not take your uterus out, because the uterus is not a place. I mean, uterus is not a spare part. God doesn't give us spare parts. The gallbladder is not a spare part. It has a function. And if you don't have a gallbladder, then you have like dumping syndrome and digestion issues. So if they just start telling you that it's something's not working, let's just take it out, that just puts money in the surgeon's pocket. And then, you start getting treated with meds for all these complications of surgery. And surgeries can be dangerous. I mean, we think, oh, it's just a hysterectomy and I'm not going to be bleeding anymore. And the doctors aren't giving patients informed consent. They're not. Informed consent means I'm going to tell you what's causing this, and I'm going to give you the options that are non-surgical, but how often do surgeons tell patients, this isn't the only option? No, they just say, we'll take it out. You'll be fine. They don't slow down long enough to do that. Now, they do bring out this book of papers before you have the surgery, right? And you're stressed and you're getting ready to have surgery and you're sitting there signing all the paperwork. And so the nurse is kind of running through with pre-op and telling you all the bad things that can happen. But at that point, you don't care. I mean, and you think this is your only option. And I have people tell me all the time, I wish I'd known this before I had my hysterectomy. And I will tell you, when I had my hysterectomy, I don't miss my uterus a day in my life, but I also really was in a place that I didn't know all of this, right? And so if you don't know all of this, you are a victim to the system. And even I, as a medical doctor, didn't really know all my options. And it wasn't until a doctor came or a patient came and she was from California and she said, can you write bioidentical hormones for me? And I was like, what the heck are you talking about? And so she showed me her creams and I was like, okay, yeah, but I'm before I refill it again, I'm going to research this. And it changed everything for me. It was like a God moment, just opened up the sky. And I was like, this is me. This is me. But I'd already had my hysterectomy. And so they don't teach doctors this in medical school. You have to get outside the box. And it's only if God drops it in your lap or if you have lots of hormone problems, yeah, I mean, it's just, you just stuck. And even somebody who's been through medical school and residency and been in practice, still not knowing. And I really truly believe that was, such a godsend because now I do this, right? So I tell people all the time that you wouldn't go to a brain surgeon for a heart problem. You wouldn't go to a cardiologist for a ortho problem. So find someone who understands how these hormones work and want to help you avoid a hysterectomy. Because, like I say, just taking the uterus out does not fix the hormone problem. And you've probably been progesterone deficient a long time, and too much estrogen is what caused all those bleeding problems. So the balance between these, right here where you have this estrogen dominance, is where you have the PMS. And so everybody knows what PMS is. We kind of joke about it, but it's not funny because you're not sleeping. You are retaining water. You are fluffy. You are mad. You are even listening to your boyfriend chew his cereal or crunch his cereal. You're like, I'm going to freaking lose my mind. That's what you are when you're estrogen dominant. And if somebody isn't doing your hormones right or they don't know what they're doing, you will be in estrogen dominance if they're just giving you estrogen and they're not talking about progesterone or testosterone or any of the other things. So make sure that you are going to someone who specializes in this because this is your life. This is your life. And it's just miserable to have to feel like that. Yay, Tanya's getting the test kit. Woo, I love it. I love it. So yeah, she's talking about the test kit. You got to do this. And oh yeah, he said 119, great stocking stuffers. Can you imagine changing somebody's life by helping them get on hormone therapy because their life is not so great? So yeah, this is awesome. So it's usually a $300 test and we're doing $119 for Christmas special. Elaine, you said something about Lupron. So yeah, so Lupron is one of the things that is used for oftentimes for endometriosis because instead of giving you progesterone, oh my gosh, I want to scream. Instead of giving you progesterone, they just wipe out all of your hormones, including your estrogen. So you can't build up estrogen anymore. But the whole fix is to give someone bioidentical progesterone and you will save their life and you can just do it cycled. Night sweats a few days before your cycle. So that's a little bit tricky. Is there a limit for hormone therapy? Since your body was run. Oh, Lupron. Yeah, it's bad. It's so bad. Yeah, that's a whole nother discussion. We got to do that though, Elaine. Remind me sometime to do that. what causes night sweats a few days before the cycle starts? So, night sweats and hot flashes are usually when the estrogen is low, but not always. So, if you have a lot of estrogen and not enough progesterone to pull it down, as you cycle up here, progesterone will like kind of freak out on you, right? Because there's so much estrogen. And so finally, your body will get the feedback loop that says, holy crap, what is all this estrogen doing? And then you get a progesterone spike because progesterone does this normally and estrogen does this normally. So estrogen peaks about here and then progesterone peaks there. But sometimes if you have so much estrogen, the progesterone kicks in and will pull it down. So you'll have a window of estrogen deficiency. So right before here, you might get a little drop off, but the estrogen progesterone balance is really fascinating. And when you draw blood or do a saliva test on someone menstruating, it's always kind of helpful to know whether they're in, this is what we call the follicular phase and this is the luteal phase. So it's kind of important to know where they are and to kind of get that snapshot in time. And so it's not critical because at the end of the day, here's what I do. I will get levels and I don't care where you are. And I will look at, and there's something called the Omni calculator. Somebody asked me the other night to write this out, OMNI calculator. And when you get your estrogen levels and your progesterone levels, you can look at the ratio. So you can see at any given time where they are, and you can calculate where you're supposed to be. So I know that's a little bit of nerdy science, and really you want to work with somebody who, again, knows what they're doing and can give you that information. But at the end of the day, it's still really easy. You treat them with progesterone, with natural progesterone. I mean, that's all I can say. I mean, it's such an easy fix. Y'all do not have to be suffering. It is absolutely ridiculous. I get really passionate and mad, but you don't have to suffer. So anyway, that's it. That's easy. Okay. Did I get those questions? Age limit for hormone therapy. Okay. So, that's such a long answer. I always tell my staff, don't ask me that because we're going to be on the whiteboard for an hour. No, there's not an age limit for hormone therapy. And the reason that you ask that, okay, let's do that real quick because I love this. Oh, look, my erase board's actually erasing. Sometimes if you leave it on there too long, it won't erase. Okay, so I'm going to do another one of these. I do this all the time. Elaine, you know I do this all the time, don't you? Hormones. We'll put the hormones over here. Usually hormones are on this axis of this graph. Okay, and then we're going to do birth to, let's say you live to be 100. Okay, just like ovulation, we split the screen with day 14. We're going to split the screen with, or the graph with age 50 because that's usually when menopause happens. Okay, so what happens, we're going to do, I'm going to try this. You know, when the markers kind of match up, like you get these like when you're a kid and they're like this. Let's see if this works. It probably won't, but here. Okay. So estrogen and progesterone, that's kind of cool. Okay. So at birth, we really don't have much, right? And then as we go, estrogen and progesterone are kind of doing this. Maybe you have a baby and your hormones are fluctuating, or maybe another baby, or maybe you have endometriosis. And then you got that. And then maybe you have PCOS and you don't have much progesterone because PCOS is just a progesterone deficiency. And then when we get to perimenopause, and this can happen at anywhere from the age of 30 to 50, then our hormones start doing this. I always like to do that. That's fun. And then your progesterone like says, forget it, I'm done. And then your eggs dry up and now you are in ovarian failure. So menopause is just a year without periods. That doesn't mean anything. It's just like hysterectomy, you just took it out, right? You just stop having periods, but the ovaries actually shut down. Elaine says, I'm 68 and be starting again. Yes, you will. I love it. I'm so excited. So I have a lady, I keep telling her story because she's just it's amazing. She's 72. She's been begging doctors for testing and hormones for 20 years. Hot flashes several times a day, not sleeping. And so she's just over the moon. So anyway, I'll tell you the reason you're asking me, am I too old? So what happens is when you get into ovarian failure, your ovaries literally shut down. You are flatlined. I mean, it's like on an EKG. If you go flat on an EKG, you're dead, right? And you might as well be because you feel like crap, right? So this is interesting because what happened in 2002, there was a study called the WHO study, and they took women out here 10 to 15 years from menopause and they put them on synthetic estrogen. And the difference between bioidenticals and natural organic estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, whichever hormone you're going to talk about, is the difference between a strawberry and a strawberry candy. You eat a strawberry, your body knows what to do with it. You eat strawberry candy all the time, you'll get diabetes, right? It's completely different chemical. So they put women at the age of 60 and beyond on synthetic estrogen without progesterone to balance it out because most of these women had had a hysterectomy and they think you don't need progesterone if you've had a hysterectomy. And that is not true. And so, anyway, women started having problems, but they had no protection for 15 years. And if you think about who gets breast cancer and who gets heart attacks and strokes, it's not women here in their 30s. It's women here who haven't had any protective effect of estrogen and all the things that estrogen can do for you. And so, because the participants mostly in that study were 60 and above, and then they went and said that, oh my gosh, hormones cause cancer. That's the reason that doctors tell patients you're too old, which is absolutely ridiculous. And I mean, we're being lied to. I mean, it's clown world. I mean, it's so crazy. Don't take my word for it. Do your research, study this stuff. You can go tomorrow and say, this crazy girl, I don't trust what she's saying. I'm going to go look this up. So I love you all, and I would never lead you astray if I didn't know it 100%. This is stuff that I've studied for over 20 years. I mean, I've been a doctor almost 25 years now. So I promise you with everything in my heart. And if I am wrong about anything, please direct message me or call me out because I will do my research. I always reserve the right to be wrong. And I have been wrong about things. And, I'm the first one to go, oh, I didn't know that. Like, for instance, I'll just admit it. I was underdosing testosterone in women for years because the sources that I learned how to dose testosterone, I was underdosing in the creams. I mean, we do pellets and, injectables and stuff like that. And no, that was fine. But I learned that instead of 2 milligrams of testosterone, I should be giving 10 to 15 to get those levels up, right? So lots of things come out. I used to do only saliva testing. And then I was like, okay, well, if I want to check insulin and thyroid and all the things at the same time. So I've switched my practice around a little bit, but I still stay to the core science, right? So some of the ways that I treat things, I'm open to learning about. So anyway, all that said. Okay, so I'm going to skip out of this because I only have about 15 minutes left. And so I do want to finish the low energy component of what we're talking about tonight. I feel like if we talk about it more, we can figure it out. Absolutely. Yes, yes. And I think that social media really contributes and is so helpful because there are people out there talking about this. And you do have to be careful. And that's why I say do your own research. Because there are people out there who say stuff like one of my patients today said she follows a lady who's in the menopause space. And I knew who she was because I kind of look around and see what other people are saying. And this lady was like, you don't need testing. And I'm like, why would you not need testing? Why wouldn't you want to know what your levels are? Why wouldn't you know if you're estrogen dominant? Why wouldn't you want to know if you don't have any testosterone or if you have too much testosterone? So, yeah, so, you get lots of information out there, but okay. So we'll run through these. Thyroid can definitely cause low energy. And, let me check my phone is losing its charge. Oh, I had it in the wrong space. Oh, good. Okay. Yay. We're charging. I don't want to lose you guys. Let's see. What? Sorry. Technical difficulties. Stand by. Okay. I'm back. So thyroid, food sensitivities, histamine intolerance, and we can go into more of those later, but leaky gut. So food sensitivities feed into leaky gut. We talked about food. One of the other things with food is insulin and blood sugar crashes. So if you're getting low energy throughout the day, think about what you've eaten. And so when I check blood work on women and I see that their insulin level is really high or they're insulin resistant, I'll tell them if your energy is low after you've had a carbohydrate or a high sugary meal within 30 minutes and you feel like you need to go to sleep, that is usually an insulin imbalance. And so that would be one of the things to think about, a low carb diet, or to, get your insulin levels checked and see where you're at with that. Okay, adrenal fatigue. It's almost like commercial doctors don't recognize the adrenals unless you have cancer in them or they've completely shut down. You have Cushing's or Addison syndrome. And hypofunctioning adrenals are a real thing. And so I real quick, I want to talk about that just a little bit. Okay. So your adrenal glands have 3 different layers. So if I were like drawing out some, like your adrenal gland, and it's a little gland that sits on your kidneys. I have allergies from food all of a sudden, and gastritis and ulcer, but I have energy. Yeah, Lena, it kind of, everybody's different, right? So that's kind of why we go through the differential diagnosis list, right? And so he's having low energy. So let's say this is an adrenal gland, and that's not a great picture, but it's actually like a little tiny, tiny thing. But this layer actually makes, going through all my markers here, this layer makes all the same hormones that your ovaries did when you had them, if you've gone through menopause. And so basically it takes cholesterol and it makes your progesterone, and then that makes your estrogen, and then your testosterone. And so your adrenal glands, there's one layer here. And this layer of your adrenal glands regulates your potassium and your sodium and your blood pressure. We call those mineral corticoids. And this layer regulates your blood sugar through cortisol. So there's another side pathway here that makes cortisol. And you don't have to know all this, I promise. This is all just nerdy science. I just want you to kind of see how complicated the body can be, but yet how simple it can be when you understand that your adrenal glands can get overworked. And this is why you get high blood pressure. High blood pressure is not a blood pressure medication deficiency. Something is causing it. And it's either your adrenals or it's your liver. And people think it's your heart, but it is not your heart. It is how you methylate through your liver, and things, supplements like TMG and methylated vitamins can help that, changing your food. And the reason salt makes your blood pressure go up is if your adrenals aren't functioning, your mineral corticoids won't regulate your sodium and potassium. And if you have insulin resistance, now you have issues with your sugar metabolism, and your adrenals just get really tired trying to deal with all that. So that's what they call adrenal fatigue. Okay. Inflammation. So if you don't have cortisol because your adrenals aren't functioning, cortisol is your body's natural anti-inflammatory. I call it God's ibuprofen because that's what takes your inflammation down. So if you have a lot of inflammation, you're going to have low energy because it's taking your immune system all of its energy to deal with trying to reduce inflammation. So if you have joint pain, or you have frozen shoulder, which is very common after menopause, or you have just these new aches and pains that come up, or fibromyalgia, that is all inflammation. Okay. Some people don't think of fatigue or low energy as an emotion, but I think that it is, because I know that I have been in relationships in my past that I have been so sad and so scared, and that I literally felt like it was sucking the life out of me. And there is a spectrum of people, especially healers, people in the healthcare field, people who have elderly parents that they take care of, or a sick child they take care of. And the more loving and giving energy that you have, we call that empathic. So there's a difference between sympathy and empathy. Sympathy is you feel bad for them. Empathy is you almost take their energy on. And I've had experiences in my life where I've had to recognize that my energy suck is not from me. It's from people, or especially being a doctor, when I treat a lot of chronic pain or people who have a lot of emotional pain, like I almost will feel it. Even when I do injections. I mean, I know this is crazy. You guys can tell me if you've had any experience like this, but I have to disconnect or dissociate from that because I so don't want to hurt people that I can almost feel it's not pain. It's almost like, when you scratch your nails on a chalkboard and it's like painful. It's not really painful, but it's so uncomfortable. And that's what I feel when I have to hurt somebody with an injection or something like that. And so I dissociate by saying, I know that this PRP or whatever I'm doing, or a steroid shot, whatever it is going to make them feel better. And so I'm just like, okay, that's where I go in my head to make it okay. But if you are the type of person who really feels drained, and we call it caregiver fatigue, that can definitely be an energy drain too. And then there are people that are energy vampires that attract to you because you have so much energy to give and you will take on their pain. And so that's a whole nother spiritual conversation. But I've experienced that in my life. If you guys experienced that, put that in the comments if you know what I'm talking about. So I mean, it's just crazy. Just this chat's for you guys. So let me know. Or even if you did, how you dealt with that. Um, so stress kind of leads in that too. I mean, have you ever had somebody that calls you on the phone and immediately you feel tired because you're like, oh, that wears me out? And also, I believe that tiredness is contagious. So if you're around somebody who's not got much energy, like I have women who their husbands are 200 pounds overweight and they're just couch potatoes, and they get home and they're just like, they're so tired because there's like nothing in their life to like feed them, and they feel trapped, and then they're like, oh, I'm just stuck here. And so, or a friend will call them that's just an energy vampire, and they're just like, oh, not her again, and you just feel like you need to go to bed, right? Christy says, as an older exhausted nurse, I understand. Yep. And a lot of people go into healthcare and nursing and things like that because you have so much empathy, you are empathic, and you're caring. So it can be tricky. And I think that's really important. They say self-care. Self-care is not manicures and getting your hair done. Self-care is really disconnecting, having a hobby, like I paint or I play guitar. I have these things that I disconnect in. So I think that's what self-care is, that you actually feel worthy of having the time to take for yourself to do those little things. Um, Cancer. This was one of the things that I learned in residency, and they always taught us, if you have somebody with extreme fatigue and you have gone the whole gamut of everything that you can look up. Dee says oophorectomy. Oophorectomy means having your ovaries out, for people who don't know, and had hormone positive cancer. So nervous. Well, I will pray for you, darling. And hysterectomy, absolutely. I didn't say that a while ago, but if you've had cancer, you have something going on, I'm not telling you not to have a hysterectomy because that's serious, right? But I'm just talking about people who just have uterine bleeding, and a doctor just says, well, let's just take the uterus out without addressing the hormone issues. So I will absolutely pray for you, honey. And I'm here every night at 7 o'clock. So if you would come back later and let me know how that went. So much fatigue, 3 months after hysterectomy, weakness, feel like I'm dying. All labs are good. Okay, Annie, I'm so sorry, but I'll tell you right now, your labs are not good. And even if they're telling you they're normal, they're probably normal because they don't expect you to have any hormones after hysterectomy. So absolutely get the kit, get your hormones checked, and let us fix it, because you're just going to get worse and worse, unfortunately, because you don't have the hormone balance. That's why they took your uterus out, but they didn't fix the hormone imbalance. So absolutely. Okay. So a couple more things I want to get through. Obesity. Oh, cancer. I was talking about cancer. So pancreatic cancer is a silent killer. And so cancer takes a lot of metabolic energy. So they used to always teach us, if you can't get to the bottom of fatigue, then do a CT scan of their belly or something, because something's going on. So and that can be, fatigue can be a sign of cancer. I'm not telling you, I don't want to scare you, because there's so many other things for low energy that can figure out first. Um, Dehydration. It's funny because we are just underhydrated as a culture. And so there are calculations you can do because some people think 8 ounce glasses of water a day, but it's by your body weight. So go do the calculations because it's a lot more than that. That is not true. And a lot of people are underhydrated for that. Medications. So antihistamines, blood pressure medications, beta blockers, if you're on that, can make you really tired. Antidepressants, there are some that if you need sleep. Oh yeah, Elaine says low D3. Yes, absolutely. And I didn't talk about that. I'm kind of rushing here because I want to get through the whole list. I had 24 things on here. Low vitamin D absolutely can affect not only your immune system, but can give you low energy because vitamin D also regulates your testosterone. So remember, we talked about low testosterone decreasing your energy. D3 is what acts like a carrier protein to put the testosterone into the cell. So it's super important. Thank you for sharing that. Low iron, and especially if you're having heavy menstrual cycles, you're bleeding out your iron. So you're going to be really, really, really tired. Did you just have an aha moment, Elaine? I love you so much. You're so cute. B12. B12 is what called a cofactor in the DNA where your metabolism, we call it the powerhouse of the cell. It actually drives the powerhouse of the cell in the mitochondria. So B12, super important. Okay, I just had a patient today. This is crazy. I ordered labs on her because she was tired. So, we did a whole panel and a few things kind of maybe, and then I'm like, okay, well, let's go deeper. And so we went to all the autoimmune, the ANAs, all that kind of stuff. And a few things popped up, but it was so weird because it was an outside lab that we'd sent to and a cobalt level showed up. I'm like, okay, this is a God thing because I would have never checked a cobalt level and it was high. And then she told me that she lived in a house that was 80 years old. And then I'm thinking all these heavy metals potential, and she's been remodeling lately. So I'm like, what did she stir up out of there? So we're going to do more heavy metal testing on her. So if you're in an older house or mold, I've done mold testing on people and that's been positive, and there's whole protocol for that. Boredom, just being bored. I mean, I'm like that sometimes. I'm like on days, I never have a day when I don't have anything to do, but if I have a day and I'm kind of being lazy day, like I'll feel tired and I'm like, I better go do something. I'm going to stay tired. And okay, the last thing I want to leave you with is boundaries. And I know that sounds like a crazy thing that can lower your energy, but if you are giving to everyone else and not saying no, you will be exhausted and you'll be completely drained and there's nothing left. And so there are a lot of relationships where people will drain you. So if you're in relationships where you feel tired after you've been there, like at work, you have those people who always are relying on you to finish the report, or you're in school and there's always that person you're in the study partner with, and then you're always the one doing the work, or a sibling that, you've got elderly parents that you're taking care of and you're the sibling that's stepping up. That happens a lot in, being the girl. I feel like, I stepped up as the caretaker, and my brothers, are great, but it was kind of like I was a girl. I had a close bond with my mom. And so it was being the caretaker, and she had dementia. So it was just like, I felt like the weight of the world was on me. So boundaries are super important. And there's sometimes when you can't exert your boundaries because you truly are the only one. So just be mindful of that. It's okay to say no, I guess is what I'm saying. Okay, I want to leave you guys with, I love you so much. Thank you for being here. I'm here every night at 7. Bring your questions. If I didn't get them tonight, please tomorrow at 7 or direct message me. The testing kits are only $119 until Christmas. And normally they're $300. So get it now while you can. And yeah. And so the goal is to get you on a call with one of our hormone experts. Once you get the labs back, the consult is completely included. So just know that we'll take care of you once you get the labs in. And some people just sit on the labs, they order them, and we have like 100 people like sitting out there with their blood, their saliva, or their, whichever test they're doing. just sitting there. So if you're going to go to the trouble to do it, you clearly have some things going on. So make sure that you make that commitment to be excited and to do the test as soon as it comes in. And then we can get you on some bioidenticals and get you feeling better. And even if you're on hormones now, but you're not feeling good, let us get it right, because this is what I do. And all of these are based on my protocols. So that is my dream, that I'm like, I don't know, something about the number 5. It's just really like, I don't know, spiritual or something, but I want 50% of women to be on bioidentical hormones by the time I check out of this planet. So I can rest easy, rest in peace, knowing that I've made that impact. So, and there are so many women. If you go to our website, Hormone Bliss, and you can see the testimonials, it is so life-changing. So please don't suffer. You don't have to. And there are so many lies out there that are keeping you crippled, and it doesn't have to happen. So, okay. So beautiful night. Thank you, Elaine. Have a blessed night too. And I love you all so much. And just hang in there, because we got this, right? Okay. I'll see y'all tomorrow.